Welcome to today's episode of the podcast where we discuss the most recent installments of a different series every show. Today is Monday, April 14th, 2025, annual Puffin Day. If you're around a puffin, go pat its head, but not really because they're a wild species. They are placid, though, so you can hang out with them. Do you remember the show that talked about puffins the most?
No.
Chris O'Dowd's The Prize Door. His character, his wife thought was obsessed with puffins. Turns out he wasn't, but she kept on buying him a bunch of puffin-related objects. Or it might have been reversed that. He might have bought her a bunch of puffin stuff. But unfortunately, Big Prize Door was canceled last year. It dealt with a town where everyone was dealing with a midlife or existential crisis. But this isn't really anything new for Hollywood. The industry loves to make shows, dark comedies about dudes in midlife crises. I'm talking about where they cast some famous guy who with good comic timing, Bob Odenkirk in Lucky Hank, John Barenthal in American Gigolo, Will Arnett, Flaked, Ron Livingston in Loudermilk, David Duchovny as Hank Moody in Californication.
Billy Bob Thornton kind of as in Landman.
Landman, I see the connection because we're talking about Hamm. But less so because he's in the middle of his work.
Yeah.
He's in the middle of his job and he's not having an identity crisis. He's more so stubborn about his own identity, he wants to change everybody else's. On April 11th, Apple TV released its first 2 episodes of Your Friends and Neighbors, another show about a man in a midlife crisis. The series was created by Jonathan Tropper. Tell me about him.
Jonathan Tropper created Banshee.
He did.
He also ran, directed, and wrote for it, as well as Warrior. And he wrote the film The Adam Project, starring Ryan Reynolds back in 2022 for Netflix.
Did he write that with Reynolds? Because I thought Reynolds had
I think Reynolds, had definitely a hand in it. And he's also writing a Star Wars spin-off film that's supposed to come out in 2027.
Having seen Tropper do the whole Banshee series, what do you think the Star Wars film's going to look like?
Oh, I don't know, but it's going to be action-packed. The thing was that Jonathan Tropper had been trying to pitch this for like over a decade, but then he pitched Banshee, and then he talked about kind of the struggle with that because he had to really focus on action-oriented content when really he just had been wanting to make a show like this.
Okay, yeah, this doesn't have a lot of action except for in the first scene where Jon Hamm's character has murdered someone, or it looks like that. Now he's having to clean up the body. You've got Olivia Munn, Amanda Peet, Corbin Bernsen, Happy Anderson. I don't actually know who Happy Anderson is, but that's an interesting name, isn't it? Last time I've heard of a Happy character was in Spider-Man, right? The Happy Universe. So I know it's Easter week. We're busting out the Hamm early. He was SNL's host. Do you agree that not all Hamm is great?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like with Landman, I watched 3 episodes of that, and Jon Hamm was underutilized. He came off as a cliche villain. He was very boring in Top Gun.
Top
right?
Gun Maverick.
The second one.
Top Gun Maverick, yeah.
He was underutilized in that. Too serious. I know he's been in a bunch of Apple series, or at least he was in the Jennifer Aniston one, but I haven't seen that one. Mad Men, Baby Driver, Wet Hot American Summer, Todd Margaret, Bad Times at the El Royale,
Richard
Unbreakable, Kimmy Schmidt, SNL. The guy's funny. He knows how to act. Everybody loves Jon Hamm, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So Apple TV quickly gets ahead with 2 things that it does in this series. For Your Friends and Neighbors, it puts the main character front and center in its debut episodes. You don't watch one 40-minute episode and then suddenly he disappears. I think that's sort of what they did with Big Prize Door and Chris O'Dowd. It's like they introduced him as a main character and then suddenly it was like an ensemble
cast, yeah.
Yeah, that's not what's happening here. Coop is narrating the entire series, so he's on display the whole time. The other thing that's on display is that Apple actually puts the episode runtime on the card when you click it, not the credits and the ads. They take that all away, so it's the actual episode runtime. That's very convenient for me. 55 minutes for the first episode, 46 episodes for the second episode. I just want to say that. Is this the best way to spend your free time with 90 minutes, you want to say?
Well, yeah, YouTube put the first episode on there ad-free as well. It censored out all the cuss words, but it's completely free. Yeah, it's like 55 minutes. They said the first one's on us. So, I mean, it's just kind of being promoted everywhere.
Mm-hmm. For now, at least. So the other 90-minute stuff that you have to choose between is Talk to Me, that horror movie. It's pretty good. SpongeBob, Sponge Out of Water, Bandersnatch. You could watch that again. Bad Words, Lucy, the Emoji Movie, Flow, Zombieland, The Lion King. There's goods, there's bads. Where does this fall on it? I'm going to go through the synopsis and you can tell me, okay?
Okay.
Jon Hamm is playing Andy Coop. Do you know much about this series? Because I know I was the only one who watched it.
I saw the first episode.
You saw the full first episode?
Yep.
Okay. 2 events are scrambling this guy's life, right? What are they?
He got cheated on,
His divorce,
and also he ends up losing his job.
and he lost his job. Exactly. Coop is a New York hedge fund manager that divorces his wife after walking in on her cheating on him in his marital bed with his with this ex NBA guy named Nick, who they refer to in that segment as his friend, but they never seem like friends.
Right, yeah, Mark Tallman, he was supposed to be in episode 6 of Daredevil Born Again, which we watched yesterday, but I didn't see him. So
Yeah. Well, okay. That you threw me. I think he played probably the cop that Vince or Wilson Fisk talks to and says you used to be the main guy in like Baltimore or something
yeah.
like that, and then you came here and you were kicked off the squad. I don't know for sure. Anyways, Coop loses his job when his boss fires him on a technicality and just to steal his client list. So Coop, I guess, gets the key, like with most sales jobs. He works up a portfolio of specific clientele that is only working with him. And when the hedge fund or the boss hedge fund guy, played by Corbin, whatever his face is, the guy from Psych, he finds out that Coop had sex with one of the subordinates who didn't work directly under him.
Mhm.
He uses that as the opportunity to steal all the clients back. Coop tries looking for work, but he has a 2-year non-compete clause. Think about it like Conan back in the late night 2010
With NBC.
era. He had like 7 months where he wasn't allowed to jump into another show. In this case, it's a 2-year suspension for Coop, and what he has to do is find a company that's willing to hire him and use him sort of on the side, but still pay him like his old wage. So that's very hard for him to do. Thus, he decides to instead start robbing his friends and neighbors of all their like stuff that they don't care about, their watches.
Right, hence your friends and neighbors. But my thing is that it seemed like Jon Hamm took such a large jump doing that, at least his character, Cooper, in the TV series. Did you buy that? Because he ends up like taking wads of cash and he takes a watch while they're on vacation. But would you buy that they wouldn't realize that that was happening?
I think the egregious wealth of it and the amount that this guy's been through is supposed to just lead you to believe that so many people wouldn't fall into I'm just going to start stealing my stuff or my friends, but like it would be so easy too. Like
Yeah.
it's just leading you down that avenue. Also, he's not particularly a genius. Like in these type of shows, you do expect them to be, and we'll get into that in a little bit, but like using their expertise to then do the crime. Breaking Bad, he used what he knew in chemistry to make meth. In Ozark, what's his face? Bateman used his expertise in the money market to do money laundering, but he's not doing that here. In Dexter, he uses the murdering to or his blood splatter analysis and his understanding of how cops work to facilitate him being able to murder more people. But he's not doing anything hedge fund related. He's literally just walking into people's houses, bling ring style, just taking their stuff, but only a little bit at a time.
Yeah, so you've been mentioning kind of like Ozark, Dexter. There's a lot of different genres to kind of cover, but I want to know what is the genre that you would say for this TV show? Because Topper, again, the guy who created this show, talked about how he had written the script but didn't know what tone to use, and that's a big reason why they got the director Craig Gillespie. But it seems like it's a genre mesh of a ton of different things.
It's a genre mesh. It's not pulling its punches. Work drama, family drama, crime drama, comedy. It's busy. The last time we did such a busy show, it got panned. Suits LA. But the style, this one's got a better thread. Like you can definitely see where the narration is headed. And speaking of narration, I do compare it to Bad Monkey because Vince Vaughn's character in that has the same sort of cynicism, the same sort of attitude. He has more of a moral compass than I think Andy Cooper does, but his name in Bad Monkey was Andrew Yancey. So both Andrews and Hamm, it's not the first time he's been a narrator in a series, explaining what he's done. You remember where was he a narrator in before?
Well, I was gonna say, I was gonna ask if Coop's inner monologue was a benefit for the show.
Well, it was Legion. Do you remember that he was the like ant
Right.
sludge?
We never saw him, right? But he always was just the person
he literally
that
was called the narrator.
Yeah.
So he's done this before. He was also the narrator in Todd Margaret. The first scene, the in media res, flash forward, I don't think it's necessary. I think, if anything, it takes away from the show. I think it would have made a cool cliffhanger at some point. However, like in the first episode, if you forget about it, it kind of leads you to think maybe this is going to become a legal drama where Elena, because she wasn't okay with the complaint that was being used against him, was going to come on his side and help him fight back for his like job and stuff,
I
right?
would agree with you because Jon Hamm said it was his favorite scene, and so did Jonathan Chopper from the pilot. But I don't think that you really needed it.
I'm just saying, like, they usually use a scene like that to get everybody's attention, to make sure that they're. But I'm already intrigued by the fact that Jon Hamm is like showing us montages of him as a young adult, and then with his wife, and then just making his way through the industry, getting bigger and bigger houses. The AI to it though was awful.
That
He
was
looked
the
super
most.
plastic.
That was the most Wolf of Wall Street montage I
Right.
have seen for years. That was the most,
But it
especially
was
with the
good, I thought.
monologue. Yeah, no,
In
I
5
liked
minutes,
it.
I understood his entire character.
Right.
I didn't need the first scene quite yet. Suits LA, I'm also going to compare to it because there was that betrayal aspect where the co-partner betrayed the guy in Suits and also his friend left. In this, it's not only his friend, the Nick guy, it's also his wife and also the boss. Screw Coop, all screw Coop over. And then Breaking Bad, instead of it taking a few episodes, Coop breaks bad in the first episode. And that might be the reason you were complaining about the fact that he just does it on a like so quickly. But we do see that this like his divorce has happened for like a full year.
Yeah.
He's been drinking a lot more. In real life, Jon Hamm did get treatment for alcoholism. Did you know that? And part of the reason they said in Mad Men he would try to keep up with his character to be like more authentic. And so like he would be drinking a lot in
Oh wow,
action.
I actually didn't.
It's also worth noting, though, that like with a lot of these bad characters where they break bad, Walter White, Joe Goldberg from You, Dexter Morgan, who I said use their expertise to benefit them.
Right.
Coop does feel more redeemable, even by episode 2, where he does some pretty scummy things. I think petty theft and him just being sort of an asshole to some people is definitely like something you could see him coming back from. So do you want me to get into my pros or what?
Yeah, let's talk about the pros first.
All right. So it's a complex show. It's a complex character. He's a good brother. He's a bad husband. He's a good finance bro. He's an okay dad. And he's a bad thief. So all that mixed into the first 50 episodes. I really like the first episode.
Yeah,
I'm going to rifle through what happens. You tell me if you want any more explanation, though. I do know that you've seen. You got the flash forward in the first scene. Then you get the bar scene with Elena, where he ends up sleeping with her. The boss racket balls firing scene. Coop trying to connect with his kids. Him sleeping with Samantha,
Yeah,
Olivia
so
Munn.
what'd you think of the kids scene? Because it felt like
Well,
it
there's
was.
a couple. There's 2 kids.
I was
There's
talking about the first scene in
Hunter
the
and Tori.
ice cream shop with Hunter.
I liked how when they went back to the ice cream, he had licked a bunch of it off. Like there was a dark comedy moment where he's like staring at it like, I don't want ice cream. And then the next second, it's like half done. I wasn't sure if it was because it was dripping or because it was just a funny clip.
It just always seems to be a cliche for divorced dads. I remember in 17 again, there was a very similar scene with Matthew Perry and his kids where they go to an ice cream shop. And
There's
like,
also a similar scene in Adolescence season 2 or episode 2 where the cop at the end of the day calls his kid over and he's like, let's go get lunch together. It's like,
Yes.
that's just the
but the
distant
kid
dad
was kind of
101.
the kid was kind of excited about it in adolescence
Because there had been progress in their actual like relationship in that story. In this one, it's like Coop is trying to manage getting his job back, all his love interests, which there are many, and then also dealing with his kids at the same time that his daughter is sleeping with a 20-year-old.
Yeah. If we could also go back to the scene where he's at the bar in the hotel with the
with
woman.
Elena.
Yeah, with Elena. This felt. And it only feels like it kind of taps into a little bit of the divorce fantasy of like a dad, an attractive young girl hits on a 40-year-old guy at a bar, and the guy is like very suave.
Yeah.
Like most of the women in the pilot at some point have sex with him and like either cheat on him, screw him over, or are like overly emotional about it. At least that's what I got from it, especially from that.
That's why I
scene.
liked her turn at the end, where it wasn't that she did use it in the predictable fashion to get ahead in her career. She instead seemed like she was going to be pushing back on Corbin until he offered her. Sorry, Corbin's real name in the show I think is like Jack Bailey. So Jack, she pushes back and says like, why did you fire him? He didn't deserve to leave for that. Like she was standing up for him. We didn't see her at all in the second episode, which made me sad, but it does lead to the potential for her possibly having a really cool storyline. And so that's why it made up, I think, for the first scene where I was like rolling my eyes a bit like you, that she's hitting on this guy who's so much older.
But
Yeah.
so going back, we already talked about him with Hunter at the ice cream shop, and then he goes to meet his wife, like you said, Amanda Peet, who played Betty Broderick in Dirty John.
I know her mostly from Togetherness with Mark Ruffalo, Mark Duplass. Yeah.
She was also in Fatal Attraction. Yeah, what'd you think of their chemistry?
I thought they were great in the AI. It also reminds me of Hank Moody's character and his wife in that series, where there's an off again, on again thing. In the second episode, it becomes more clear that she's not 100% happy with Nick, that she still does miss her ex. She keys a car. She's also a therapist with like issues with herself, so shrinking.
Yeah.
Apple likes to borrow from itself all the time. But yeah, I liked her character. What'd you think?
I liked her character too. I thought that I was glad someone called it out in the first episode how friendly their divorce scene, because it seemed like it was almost too friendly.
I disagree. I mean, it seemed like he was pretty pissed off.
But like in the scene when he's sharing a beer with her on like the front lawn and stuff,
He
it
still has
seemed like
feelings for her, of course. I mean, they've been together for so long. The one thing about him having to pay alimony, despite the fact that she cheated on him, you look it up, New York since like 2010, they have a no fault like clause where it's basically just standard of living. You need to pay if you end up supporting the other person, despite the fact if they may have screwed you over. It didn't happen in a nutshell, like she said. So I don't think he was cheating on her, but definitely like distant, and it just seemed like his career got ahead of him.
Right.
So now he has neither of those things, and he's working with his financial advisor, Barney, business manager guy. He gets pissed drunk at this barbecue.
The thing about Barney is this is actually the fourth collaboration with Jonathan Chopper. He played a big role in Banshee, but he also took over for Jose Lana, whom we
So you
saw.
recognized him from Banshee?
Yes, but
Who did he play in Banshee?
He played, I believe it was the Tony Starr's like best friend. He was
cool.
also kind of an assassin, but he also took over for Jose Lana in The King and I, the person that we saw on Broadway in 2015. He took over for that.
I can see that. Yeah. So he shaved his head more.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, Jon Hamm's character, he gets pissed drunk at a barbecue. Reminded me a little bit of Breaking Bad, where his wife ended up like jumping into the swimming pool or whatever she did there.
Very much so, yeah.
And then he ends up saving his sister, Allison, when she's off her meds. I think she might be schizophrenic or bipolar. He punches his daughter's boyfriend in the dick when he catches them about to have sex. He picks up Hunter's drum set because Hunter is into that. And then he confronts Elena about why she complained, finds out that she didn't, then goes back to his boss, gets kicked out of the firm or wherever, and then he talks to his wife, Mel.
I was also trying to figure out, because he plays drums by the very end of the first episode, if Jon Hamm knew how to play drums, but I don't think he did.
Clearly he does. And I don't think he learned that for the role.
What I meant is that there was no information on it, but I didn't know.
One thing I did find interesting that's like a far off comparison is I didn't know that Jon Hamm plays tennis. We find that out more in the second episode. He's teaching his daughter before she goes up against one of their neighbors. And I remember John Barenthal was also surprised to see in King Richard,
yeah,
back in the day with Will Smith and the Serena Williams, Venus Williams storyline about how he played the tennis coach. So I guess maybe they pick it up in Hollywood. Maybe they know it from being kids. I know that Hamm went to like some really prestigious high school at one time. He and Paul Rudd, apparently, this is old news, but like him and Paul Rudd both tried to date the same lady, who was Nina from 24. And he ended up going to prom with her. What does this have to do with the show? Nothing really. Olivia Munn, I would say, as far as my pros, also hasn't had a chance to shine because you've seen a lot of sex scenes with her, but she's a comedian at heart, Daily Show correspondent, John Mulaney's wife, Perfect Couples, that show that was on NBC for one season that nobody knows.
She was also going to quit acting. She said that she was done. She became a mother and was like, if I'm going to do anything, I'm going to be behind the camera. Told her manager not to like kind of audition her for anything. And then she got this role and she decided not to. She was like, okay, I'll do it.
Right. So with Olivia Munn and Elena's storyline both kind of like simmering under there, episode 1 left me with a lot to like hope for. Episode 2, I would fall under the cons because it's a little disjointed. It doesn't live up to its name, though, which is Deuce. So that's a good thing. Coop still looks for work. He's trying to offload his neighbor's watch now that he has it. He checks into this pawn shop run by Lou. We see Mel being a counselor, Coop teaching his daughter how to play tennis or like get farther in her finals. Desperate housewife. She's trying to get into Princeton. We see this desperate housewives, Samantha's relationship, all that drama. Coop moves his sister back to his parents, but then ultimately to his own place because he realizes his parents don't care that much about his sister. Hunter gets his drums, but now he's still sad that his dad is absent. Tori, the daughter, wins her match. Coop hangs out with Sam's kid, actually, Olivia Wilde. Olivia Wilde. Munn's
Olivia
character.
Munn, yeah.
And then Mel gets day drunk. She keys the car. Coop steals another watch. And then, so there's like a lot that's happening, but not a lot of movement that's happening.
Well,
nothing's wasted. I didn't find myself super bored in it, but it might be a little unnecessary. So I don't like the Desperate Housewives storylines that much because it's kind of the same old, same old. Like they're just kind of gravitating towards anybody who isn't a slob. And the sister storyline, it's kind of like the sibling who's always there for the person. You see it in Severance, you've seen it in Gone Girl. And then, she's bipolar and schizophrenic, but there's a heart of gold, and you're just supposed to be compassionate for our main character through her. And I think that that's more soapy than necessarily help driving the plot.
It's weird because The Guardian awarded it 3 out of 5 stars and called the show fun and funny and praised Hamm's performance. It said if it moved faster, it could have been a great soap in the fine tradition of Desperate Housewives. So,
okay, I don't know if that should be your highest level of achievement. I mean, like, you have Jon Hamm starring in a dark comedy on Apple. You shouldn't be aiming for some like mid 2000s really, really cheesy soap opera. I said the AI was bad. It is like they can do better at this point, and
they don't use it too much more after that montage, right?
Out. Like even the back of him when he's like walking through the thing, you can see he has gray hair, and then they flip back to the forward side of him, and this is him in his like early 20s, and it's just like completely different face. It's so
okay,
weird.
so they do use it a lot. I was wondering.
In that montage. I'm specifically talking about the house montage that you compared to Wolf on Wall Street. I think my biggest complaint though is that this doesn't have to. Not only do they not have to show the in media res scene, but because it ends with it being so cliche with the swimming pool. Great Gatsby, Sunset Boulevard, Dead to Me.
Yes,
they all do the swimming pool.
All beginning. Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Sometimes it's the dead person in the swimming pool. Sometimes it's just someone falling into a swimming pool. Even in Breaking Bad, they have a swimming pool and the teddy bear. But even if it was like, I feel like they don't need the murder at all, but at least save it. Like, just don't put it there. So that's my biggest con of the show. And I'm not sure how to feel about Coop's decisions. I like the fact that he's not a Sherlock genius, that he is still presented as suave, so you can see why he's getting away with some stuff. But he does act desperately stupid at some points. There's always a caveat at first, and then it gets worse and worse and worse. This is what I mean by that. He sleeps with a subordinate. Now, she did hit on him first, so there's the however.
Yeah.
He's a hedge fund manager with a business manager who doesn't have a prenup. Like, you'd think that the business manager would have advised him differently. However, he did meet his wife when they were very young and they were both broke. So it would be less of a need for a prenup. He signed a 2-year non-compete clause, which he mentions was a stupid thing to do when the traditional one is only 6 months, but he was told at the time that he had job security. So I sort of get that. He doesn't register the red flags when his boss is distracting him to steal his clients. I'm assuming that's a well-worn tradition that they do a lot. I guess he just thought he had the safety because they do racquetball together quite a lot. And then he doesn't know how to clean up a crime scene well. That one, it's like just watching it, when you see someone spilling bleach everywhere and having the blood like splatter more because of it, I get that he's in a different state of mind, but it seems like you would at least try to mop it into a circle first. The unforgivable nonsense choices, I would say, though, are when he brings the watch to the pawn shop, which I think is in the second episode.
Yeah, it wasn't the first.
And the guy says, I can pay you close to $200,000 for this thing. And then all I need is the receipt in the box. And then Jon Hamm's like, I don't have the receipt in the box. And then he's sent to this shadier pawn shop and he goes in there. He sells it for $100,000 less. And he ends up, the reason why I have a problem with that is that he keeps on saying the neighbors aren't going to miss it or notice that it's gone.
Right.
So I would think that the neighbors would have the receipt and the box still there. How are they not going to miss it when they find the receipt in the box and no watch? Wouldn't it be smarter for him to go back to where he knows that it probably is, try to find the receipt, the box, even if it's a wasted trip, at least that makes you more comfortable with the fact that they won't remember it,
And like you
you
were
know?
saying, then he could go to the actual
And then he
pawn
could
shop.
actually make $200,000
Yeah.
instead of looking super shady. The problem is by the end of the second episode, the sketchy pawn shop lady doesn't even buy the second watch. She is so suspicious of him. She calls her PI to start looking into him. He could have avoided all of that had he just been more specific about going back to his neighbor's place and waiting until stalking out the place until it was empty and then just finding the receipt. And in the worst case scenario, he doesn't, and he does exactly what he did here, but it just didn't make much sense for him. His other thing that he was really stupid on that doesn't make sense is why Coop's manager, Barney, he says, you need to sue these guys. They've dismissed you in a way that's not right. And he says, I can't afford to sue them. And the guy responds, you can't afford not to sue them, right?
Yeah. Right.
And then all he does with that, he doesn't go to a lawyer at that point. That's where I was expecting a scene like that. But instead, he goes directly to the boss, who then gets him escorted out with security. And I just want them to like call David E. Kelly in or have some courtroom scene where it makes sense why he wouldn't go after his company. Maybe they're waiting on that.
Right. Well, I know that Chopper, he was the one that referred to the series as a domestic noir, and he drew inspiration from Dashiell Hammett, John Cheever, Richard Russo, and Alan Ball, all detective novelists or screenwriters. And I know that you said that that's the direction that you didn't really like that the show took in the first scene, but that
I'm
was
just
the
saying
reason.
it didn't necessarily need to be a murder mystery because Jon Hamm is actually pulling quite a funny, dark, like complex character on his own. And if you kind of maybe let the storyline with Olivia Munn play out, Samantha's storyline, you play out the storyline with Elena, and then you just it had so much going into it, like you talked about, all these different themes and stuff. You didn't necessarily need to throw in murder in there. The murder takes priority. It shifts the focus away from every other element, and it says we are now only this. There's no way he can't be this unless you want to become you, where you become a serial killer and you're just amping the stakes up every season. It's not going to work too well, I don't think, for Jon Hamm. That's why I'm like, oh, that cuts off future potential. However, just because the last 45 minutes could have been more inferred, his relationship with his kids, the wife not truly being happy, Coop reduced to stealing more watches, the whole show is low-key pretty funny. The Nick's van joke, you want to know that one. That's in the second episode. Coop's ice cream, Coop being an ass. Like, I just enjoyed it. I would give this a 7 out of 10. I would recommend it. And did you know Netflix has ratings now? Like, if you go onto their TV shows, it actually has a number next to it. I don't even know where they're getting that number from, though.
Well, I didn't know that. I know that this got good reviews. It has an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, 92% audience score, 7.9 on IMDb. Variety wrote, Hamm is fantastic, and Your Friend's Neighbor is an intriguing assessment of the fragility of the American dream.
Your friends and neighbors. Yes.
And it's already been renewed for a second season.
A lot of it's the cynical idea of, like, you have to pay so much to seem like you're just okay, and everybody else may legitimately have that sort of cash just hanging around. I think one of the low-key best moments was also when the police get called out there because they're checking around the community, and all he has to do is put on a robe and like mess up his hair, make it look like he lives there,
Yeah.
and they don't even second guess it because they're like, oh, this guy isn't the type of person who would steal. Yeah.
Right, yeah, no, and the series is going to be 9 episodes. It's shot in New York and Westchester, where Chopper himself lived for 15 years. Jon Hamm, kind of going off of that, Jon Hamm was the first person to sign on to the series, and the showrunner even said, if we didn't get Jon Hamm, the series probably wouldn't have been made, because I think, yeah, he's just such a likable presence. And then they got Craig Gillespie, who directed the first 2 episodes. He directs a lot of pilots. My Generation's pilot from 2010, Physical's pilot, Pam and Tommy's pilot, and even directed Fright Night and I, Tonya. So they got a lot of people kind of behind it in front of the camera.
Apple always does. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next episode. Hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.
Bye.